Track and field fans, welcome to Let's Run After Dark. We're going to recap an amazing day one of the 2025 NCAA Indoors. What a day, John. An all-time classic DMR. It just ended. Gary, can I say it, John? There might be children listening.
He's at least on MF. I don't know if you want to drop the
Motherfucker, Martin. Amazing. The kid that was owned at ACCs just 2 weeks ago, Ethan Strand owned him. Today he owns Ethan Strand. 348, basically flat on the anchor to give Virginia the men's DMR title. All those Vinland Anna haters on the message board saying he was too old, I think he's laughing at you right now. The men's 5,000 was amazing. We got Marco, my new favorite runner, folks. Marco, I don't know how to say the last name, John.
Marco Langen. That's how you know Robert's in rare form. He's already forgetting names 1 minute in. But yeah, the greatest interview of all time, according to Robert, or something like that. I mean, I haven't seen someone, Robert, fall in love with an athlete so far since maybe Nozomi Tanaka at the 2021 Olympics.
Jonathan Galt says he's a professional and he cannot root for athletes. I make no such claim. I am the voice of the fans. Epic interview. Check the forum right now. I've got it off. It was amazing. The guy went for it, took the lead 800 to go, had it till 200, ends up 5th or 6th, says he's irate because he's got to put food on the table for his mom and for his sister. And then the women's action, Doris Lemngole of Alabama continued her domination. Great, very fast race there, 15 low. And the BYU women have repeated again. We had Oregon, NCAA mile record holder, gets the baton with the lead. Will she hold it? No, she doesn't. We'll tell you why it wasn't a surprise if you're a student of the sport. Plus, Juliet Whitaker, NCAA Olympic finalist, Olympic finals defending champion, doesn't make it out of the first round. All of that and more on this edition of Let's Run After Dark.
Yeah, I hope you got Kitchenette here at the Airbnb in Virginia Beach. And Robert, going into this meet, I was like, do we need to do a recap on day one? Like, we've only got a couple distance finals. All the big stuff happens on Saturday. That's when the 3K is. And now I'm like, we need to do a show tonight. That might have been the greatest first day of an NCAA meet that I can remember. Just all 4 of those distance finals was sensational. 2 great 5Ks. And I'm struggling to think of a DMR that tops that. Maybe there was one that was really close, but first time in NCAA history, we've had 2 sub 350 milers duking it out on the ankle leg, because there have only been 2 sub 350 milers in the history of the NCAA. And they were both in this race. The place was going bananas. Like, that was the loudest. I think that might be the loudest indoor meet I've heard all season, Robert. Like, that was insane, that last lap. UVA, they had like 50 guys from that distance squad drive down to watch, probably a bunch of other fans as well. It was a really, really awesome race.
Try to fix the camera here, John. Mm-hmm. By the way, if you're listening live, can you put in the chat if you can hear us? Internet's a little shaky here. Let me switch streams. How is the stream? How is the sound?
Well, we got to get this camera fixed. What are you doing here? I don't understand why we ever change it. It just moves automatically. It's got a mind of its own. All right, ignore the camera. Let's talk about running. We have to start with this DMR, Robert. Going in, all right, maybe I can't ignore the camera. It's gone crazy here. But going in, I don't know, the way I broke it down was I think UVA and UNC are pretty similar on paper. And I was like, when that's the case, I go with the guy who I think is the better miler. And I thought going in, and that was going to be Ethan Strand, because he has run slightly faster than Gary Martin. They've both run 3:48, so it's not like their PRs are drastically different. But Ethan Strand made the Olympic trials final in the 1500 last year. Gary Martin did not. He had that 3K collegiate record, and Gary Martin was in that race and got dusted by Ethan Strand. And then they raced in the 5K at ACCs 2 weeks ago, and Ethan Strand just obliterated Gary Martin over the last 200 meters. He put like 4 seconds on him. So all of that evidence was saying, all right, I think Ethan Strand is kind of the guy here. And he did get the baton maybe 7 meters behind Gary Martin. He was in 6th when he got the final exchange, but Gary Martin split a full second faster than him, 3:48 to 3:49. And Ethan just kind of admitted afterwards he thought he went a little bit too early. But what it comes down to is this was two fantastic athletes on the anchor leg, and Gary Martin was the guy tonight. That could change tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if Strand comes back and wins the 3K, but you've got Gary Martin in there. You've got Hampton Samuel. I hope you have Brian Massau. I haven't double checked, but I assume he's also qualified in the 3K because usually the 5K champion gets to run that event as well. But no, this race, it lived up to the hype, Robert.
Totally. I wish I had just gotten a video of the finish. I was sitting next to some Virginia people. They were going nuts. It was amazing. I think in hindsight, I just didn't expect this to be close. I know Gary Martin's run 3:48, but I'm like, what's he won? But you can say the same thing about Ethan Strand, right? What has he won? And what, a 5,000 is a lot different, obviously, than a 1,600. So, Vin Lanana, actually, when I saw Vin, I think Gary's freshman year, I'm like, hey, is he going to run NCAA outdoors? He's like, no. And I asked him about Gary. He's like, oh, he's going to be a hell of a 5,000 guy someday. And I ran into Vin today and had a great interview with him after Gary won. And I said, hey, is he still going to be a great 5,000 guy? He's like, look, he's got amazing range, is what he said. So,
Well, he's the ACC cross country champion this fall, and Ethan Strand was top 10 in NCAA cross. They've both got great range.
And Ben said, that he said, well, that cross country performance for Gary this year was a big step forward in the right direction. So that was interesting. And I did talk to Ben, who better to talk to? We should really have him on the podcast as a long form guest, but about the changes in shoe technology. And I said, hey man, like, are the workouts a lot different, or are you doing the same workouts that Gabe Jennings did back in the day? He's like, pretty much the same workouts, but they're running them way faster. But he did say that Gabe Jennings and Gary Martin are completely different runners. He's like, you can give Gary like 8 by 1,000 and 236, and he'll just go hit 236. Like, he's got an amazing sense of pace. He's like, Gabe Jennings was like just incredible last 200. Like, just go run the last 226 or something like that, and he would do that. So, they're just both great runners, both great milers, but completely different athletes, which is kind of interesting. But, the DMR is nice. It would be nice to see one of these Americans break through and get that individual, championship. Last year at these championships, it was kind of the Nico Young, can I say coming out party? Is that too much of a joke, John, right there? I just said it, folks. But on the track coming out party, let's put it that way. He was dominant. It was just amazing. And who is going to be that guy? Is there going to be someone tomorrow in the 3,000?
Well, history says it's either going to be Brian Massau or Gary Martin, because if you go through, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's something like 10 of the last 11 NCAA 3,000 meter champions. Maybe it's 8 of the last 9. It's a significant number have won an event on Friday and double back to win. The only guy in recent history who hasn't done that was Andy Truard of NAU in 2018. Other than that, it's pretty much either the anchor. Actually, in 2023, Fouad Massaoudi ran the 1,200 leg for OK State and then won the 3K. But every other time, it's either the guy who anchored the winning DMR or the guy who won the 5K, doubling back. And so actually, once it was Cole Hawker doubling back from the mile earlier that day. It's always someone who's doubling. So you would think, Brian Massau closed in 25 seconds for his last 200 in a 13:11 race. That guy could run a 3K. Like, he's not going to be as scared of a tactical race, even up against these guys who are just, mile monsters. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's Gary Martin. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Ethan Strand. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Brian Massau. Like, I think all of those guys are going to be in the mix.
I'd be shocked if it's Parker Wolf. Wolf ran lead off today. He didn't think he ran a great tactical race, but he's just been out for so long. If you're not healthy, like the NCAA, there's just too many good guys to beat nowadays. Even if we've seen this in the past. Runners will win it one year, then get hurt the next year. And I was trying to think, what was I looking up today? Their senior year.
Well, just look at last season. Graham Blanks wins cross, and we think, oh, he's the guy moving forward. He gets hurt. Nico Young comes in and wins the 3K and the 5K indoors. We're like, oh, Nico's the guy. And then Parker Wolf comes in and he wins the 5K outdoors. So it's, it's very hard to stay on top once you reach that pinnacle in the NCAA, because you got to stay healthy and you got to keep crushing straining. And if you don't peak everything just right, there's going to be some other hungry guy coming up and trying to steal your crown.
All right, let's talk about that men's 5,000. Amazing race, 13:11. You know, if you didn't watch it live, Captain Samuel was just pushing the pace early on, super fast. Now, John found out afterwards that there was supposed to be team tactics here with New Mexico. Captain Samuel and the former world junior cross country champion. I mean, crazy. The former world junior cross country champion is now in NCAA. Ishmael Kip Curry was supposed to change the pace. Kip Curry doesn't do anything. He finally gets up to the lead and slows it down. So that wasn't good for Samuel. But with about 800 meters to go, it was an American. And Weldon was talking about this guy on the podcast the other day, Marco Langan. He's the sophomore, redshirt sophomore, I guess junior, academically. He takes the lead with 800 to go, holds it to the final 200, and ends up sixth. But just, I looked up actually, with about 400 to go, and I was like, okay. I was kind of thinking, oh, that's Liam Murphy. John's picked to win this race. He's going to try to pull a Mo Farah and have the lead at 400 to go and hold it down. Now, it didn't work out for Mark. And by the way, Murphy did not have a good day. He was only 11th. But this guy, I had never spoken to him before. Again, as I said at the beginning of the show, check out the post-race interview. I mean, he was just so raw, so real. And he's like, look, he didn't want to get into specifics, but clearly things have been going on at home. He's like, I didn't really have a role model. I've got to provide for my mom, my sister. They drove down here. I need NIL money. If I won today, it would have helped a lot. So he just wants to win. And he's actually a student of the sport. When I asked him, because Weldon on the podcast was asking, is he a junior or a sophomore? He's actually kind of both. So shouldn't you guys know this? He's like, I spend so much time on your forums. You should know everything about me. So apparently he's a Let's Run fan. He's pretty well versed in the history of the sport. Ryan Grove, who used to do the Grody Bowl on Let's Run, he's like, yeah, he became a role mentor for me. He knew all about the early days of how Arthur Linder, Burnsville, New Jersey Lear, Meg Waldron, how that got spread. Like this guy.
He's so maybe we'll maybe those next week. Who knows? But no, that was a great run. I mean, I do think it's kind of interesting. You're giving him all this credit. I mean, to me, Hampton Samuel was the guy who went for it in this race. I mean, he tried to go and run. He said his goal was to run sub 13:10. He thought if he could have done that, he would have won. I'm not so sure because Brian Massell looked damn good in a 13:11 race, closing that last lap. But that was just everything you want to see from a fantastic championship race. Hampton Samuel knew, all right, there's some kickers in this field. I got to shake them. I want the lead. And just hammers. He said he got frustrated. His teammate, Ishmael Kip Curry, didn't really help with the pacing. And then when he does finally get to the front in the final mile, slows it way down. And that, Samuel was a little frustrated by that as well. But I thought that was kind of it for Samuel when it got, all those people clumped up and like, all right, he's probably not going to outkeep these guys. He comes storming back. He gets up right near the front of the last lap, and he has the lead. Brian Massell goes for it on the first turn. Samuel fights him off. I mean, that was just a ferocious battle, that first 100 meters. And finally, Massell gets around right going into the final turn, and then it's just, it's a little bit of game over at that point. But them just trading haymakers, trying to get the lead the last 100 meters of that bell lap was fantastic. And like, I don't know, 13:11 with the 25.8 close. I guess the last lap, the penultimate lap wasn't crazy fast, like 29.1. Usually it's a little bit
cheated to make that last 200 look good.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still 25.8, 13:11. It's a meet record. The top 7 guys were all under the meet record. NCAA distance finals are being won. And we got Rocky Hansen runs 13:12. An American true sophomore ran 13:12 in this race, and that was only good for 3rd place. But he ran his ass off as well.
And speaking of Hansen, by the way, folks, I have a cheat sheet here in front of me. I was trying to think of all the things that I learned from talking to the coaches, talking to even fans. But by the way, speaking of fans, a lot of Let's Run fans, the mixed zone here is amazing because we're right off, 25 meters off the first turn. But like the fans can see us, the Let's Run Nation there. John, do you agree with this assessment? David Bruce. Robert was like a rock star. I wanted to tell him all about my adventures on the message board, but he was mobbed by the fans. It's a slight exaggeration, David.
But
thank
no,
you.
where the mix-up was located, we would
Pretty
have
cool.
people popping up and saying like, "Oh, you know, are you the Let's Run guys?" Or like, "Oh, I'm a big fan." And I did have one person ask me, "Are you the guy from Sidious Mag?" And I said, "Sorry, no." But
we are with Chris Chavez. This is Robert Johnson. So
no, they're in Boston for the New Balance High School Nationals, Robert. So, but Sidious did have some people here, but not Chavez.
But yeah, speaking of Rocky Hansen, I bumped into Coach Hayes of Wake Forest, who's done a fabulous job there. I mean, remember when he took the job, he said, "I really think I can do something special at Wake." And I said, "John, I know you're a good coach. You've coached Leo Manzano in the past, Lopez and Long, but dude, like, how are you going to get kids to Wake? It's an expensive school. It's just, I didn't see it happening, and I was wrong." But I asked him for the race. I said, "Hey, the guy going to do pretty good today?" He's like, "Yeah, I think he'll be fine." And I forgot what question I asked him next. It was something on the lines of like, "Well, is he just insane, or what makes him so good?" And Coach Hayes just pointed to his head. He's like, "Best guy I've ever had mentally. Just so strong." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "You've coached Manzano." And we didn't have a long time to chat. We were heading opposite directions, but what a compliment, you know. And again, we'll have an interview up with Rocky afterwards. We talked to him at the award stand. He's like, "Yeah, it's a great compliment to hear that from the coach." And I happened to, when I was trying to get Rocky's interview, I figured the best place to go is he's got to get off that award stand. So I was waiting there, and I saw a guy taking his picture. I'm like, "Are you related to Rocky?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm his father." And I kind of told him the story. And he's like, "Yeah, I agree. He's extremely gritty. Like he's just got great grit." So,
well, I told him as well.
This kid's talented. He's hungry, and you know the key. I think didn't run at ACC. So I was like, "Well, was he so injury prone they couldn't even run him at the conference meet?" He's like, "Well, I was actually sick."
No, so this guy, if you remember, last year at the the Nuttycombe meet, he was up there. I think he was like top 5 or something. He's running like he belongs against some real studs as a true freshman at Wake Forest. I'm like, this guy is, you know, talent coming out of, you know, it's amazing how talented this guy is. And then this, you know, he didn't really do much. He didn't end up running NCAAs. He got injured. And this year, again, he showed some promise in the early season meets. ACCs, he got heat stroke, and he said that really threw off the rest of his season. He's like, "I knew I wasn't going to be running well at NCAAs. My last couple of weeks hadn't been going well, but I needed to go out there and run it for the team." So I like that attitude. And he's like, "Look, when I can put together like 6 to 12 months of healthy training in a row, I'm going to keep making these jumps," because he's seen it over the last few years. And this, like you said, Robert, I was worried. I'm like, he didn't run ACCs. Was that another injury? Nope, food poisoning. I mean, 13-12. Again, just absolutely sensational. He closed in 26 seconds as well. And, you know, he was a little further back, and he was kind of just, you know, he wanted to be further up. But we have to remember, this is a guy who outkicked Ethan Strand in a DMR a few weeks ago, Robert. And that was, he said, the moment he kind of realized, like, oh, okay, I've gone up to a new level. Because his teammates come up, they're like, "Dude, you split 350. Like, what the hell was that? We didn't," like, no one had any idea he was capable of that. But now it's like, okay, so he's an aerobic beast. He's good at cross country, and he can close. Like, this guy's the real deal.
Have we ever seen anything like this? I mean, I didn't really realize this because he's finishing third. He's not getting the accolades. We're talking about an American running 13-12 who can run a mile in 350 as a sophomore. We've seen.
I mean, this is maybe totally crazy, but if you use the super shoe conversions, German Fernandez did something similar in his freshman year. He runs 355 indoors, wins NCAA outdoors as a true freshman in 15, and was 5th at USA's in 1325. So
better. So
yeah, he won NCAAs in the 15, but like what Rocky's doing, you know, as a sophomore. I mean, yeah, Americans aren't running that fast in college, but some of the best guys didn't have the shoes.
Yeah, but it is remarkable for sure to see that. Not sure why this goddamn camera keeps having a mind of its own. All right, let's talk about the women's action. Oh, it's just crazy. You run like 13:21 and you don't. Drew Bosley doesn't score. You know, this is a former collegiate record holder, for a U.S. collegiate record holder, right?
In the free K, yeah.
Tell me, you're going to go to NCAAs, you're going to run 13:21, you're not going to score as a senior.
Yes, we have a guy who is a world junior cross country champion. He's barely fit. He's 7th place in the NCAAs. Like, it's just so hard. If you don't come in firing on all cylinders, like you're going to get beat because there are so many good guys who are always in shape in the NCAA.
All right, let's go to the women's meet. They were up first. Women's 5,000, kind of similar. Super fast, first 3K, then it lags a little bit in the middle. Then you got the kick for glory. The Australian Amy Bunnage of Stanford leads it through basically 9 flat and then steps off the track. Apparently she had some sort of minor injury. And then, I guess everyone's favorite, at least the Let's Run favorite, Doris Lemngole took care of everything at the end. What you were expecting, John?
I mean, I did predict. I got to say credit. I was totally off on the men's 5K because I called Liam Murphy for the win, and he was totally a non-factor. But I picked Lemngole in this one, and I said I think Lexi Halliday-Lowry has a legit chance to beat her and take her down. And it was very close. Lexi Halliday-Lowry was, this meet. The other thing about it, you notice, it really matters to these people. Like even Strand was very emotional after he got beat in the DMR. He was just like, he really wanted to win that title. And Lexi Halliday-Lowry, she ran great. Hampton Samuel ran great. But if you don't win, a lot of these people, they're disappointed. They're competitors. They come in, they want to challenge themselves. So, yeah, she ran really well. But Lemngole, essentially, Halliday-Lowry said, I know she's got a great kick. I had to get in front of her. And she took the lead with around 600 to go. And she had the lead, but she couldn't do anything with it. She couldn't create a separation. And she kind of, even in the moment, she was like, I need to be going with more authority. And then when the race finished, that was her takeaway. It was like, I needed to try to really just put the hammer down and open up a gap. If I let her hang around Lemngole for the last 200, that's not going to favor me. And Lemngole takes the lead just before the bell, closes in 30.48. Halliday-Lowry closes 30.56. So competitive, but Lemngole had the position, and that actually came into play because with 100 to go, Halliday-Lowry is actually closing the gap on the back straight to Lemngole. I'm like, oh, she might go around. Turns out there's a lapped runner right in front, and I think Lexi looks up, sees this lapped runner, and thinks, oh, I might need to back off. I don't want to run into her on the curve or go really wide. And it throws her. It didn't throw her off a ton, I think. She had to throw on the brakes for a second. And when you're kicking and you kind of have to mentally check back a little bit and decelerate, a tad, that's not great. And she did have something at last 100, but I think the lap runner, to her credit, did get out of the way when she realized she was, these two runners were coming by. But I think Lexi came away as just I made a couple tactical mistakes. I think she's been in NCAA finals before, but she hasn't been kicking for the win before. So it'll be interesting to see. She's in the 3K tomorrow. Can she take that forward and learn from it?
But yet another one developed by BYU. Just incredible stuff by coaching there. Pamela Kosgei, sister of former world record holder Bridget Kosgei, third. Elise Stearns, fourth, 15:08 PB. Sophia Kennedy, Bob Kennedy's daughter. She probably hates being called that all the time, but 15:10.71. I did go up to her. I wanted to make sure I talked to her. And I did talk to her. It was funny. She was talking about what the advice her boyfriend gave her. I was like, did your dad ever give you advice? She said, yeah, I talk to my dad all the time about running. But it just shows you kids, they don't want to give the parents too much credit. So boyfriend got the credit. But it was kind of interesting. I said, well, did you know your teammate was going to take it out? She's like, no, we didn't talk about a race plan. I was kind of thinking well, shouldn't the coach, I understand as a coach, you don't want to favor one athlete over another. So you give them, they're both best plan to try to win or place high. But if you know one athlete's going to take it out and just hammer the pace, I don't feel like it's bad to her to tell everyone else, hey, she's going to hammer it, because it's not like you're changing the first athlete. The first athlete's changing anything. You're just helping the second athlete.
Yes. If anybody says, I'm going to try to run 15 flat, I think that's something that Sophia Kennedy should be aware of. But she ended up still running very well. And unfortunately, the Bunnage dropped down. I mean, she was running 9 flat. She comes through just over 9 flat for 3K. And then within a few seconds, she's hobbling and stepping off the track and really favoring her right knee. She had, this big bandage on it. So hopefully she's okay. But it was just odd to see her leading the NCAA final at a really fast pace to struggling to walk a few strides later. I hope she didn't aggravate it.
And then the women's DMR. I guess I should. Weldon's always be positive, Robert. Don't be negative. The women's DMR is why I actually hate the DMR. I'm a fan of the 4x8. It always comes down to the anchor. I mean, I guess you can say a race always comes down to the final 200, like brilliant observation, Robert, but it's like the first 3 legs don't really matter. And that was kind of the case here. Like you, after 3 legs, Oregon's got a 3.9-second lead. They've got the NCAA record holder in the mile on the anchors, Silian Al-Yadiz of Morocco. And I guess if
Turkey.
Of Turkey. I guess if you're a casual fan, you think, okay, NCAA mile record holder's got the baton with 3-second lead, she wins easily. But if you're a student of the sport, you know she's coming back from the mile prelims. It's incredibly hard to come back an hour or 2 later for everyone except the guy named Cole Hawker, who won 2 races in the span of about 2 hours a couple years ago. But
70 minutes.
If you're fresh, 9 of the last 10 winners of this race have had an anchor that was fresh. The only woman that wasn't fresh in the last 10 years was Stanford's Juliet Whitaker in 2023. So the other anchors are fresh. Al-Yadiz of Morocco's tired, and she gets run down. I thought Riley Chamberlain, who anchored BYU to the win last year, ran a smart race. She catches her about 500 meters to go, waits a couple hundred, and then takes the lead and never looks back. So
425 anchor too. That's very impressive running.
BYU, they were the collegiate record holders coming in. They get their 2nd straight win. Well deserved.
But I think, Robert, to play devil's advocate here, okay, you say it all comes down to the anchor. This, to me, is sort of an example. Well, not always. Like, BYU had a great miler as a fresh anchor, but Oregon had some very strong early legs. So the quest then for Oregon becomes, can I build up enough of a lead to give our star miler, who's running tired, a chance to win it? And they almost did. They were close. They only missed out by 0.6 of a second. Like, Al-Yadiz, it's not like she totally got dropped. She was still putting up a fight that last lap. So that to me is what makes it interesting. If someone is good enough, they can break away. We've seen it happen a few times. Like Oklahoma State met Ryan Shoppey the last couple of years. He ran masterful ankle legs, but it's not like Ryan Shoppey is this amazing miler in the NCAA. We saw tonight, against some really fantastic all-time great NCAA milers, he got run down. But
I think it takes a special athlete, a guy from Oklahoma State is tough as hell to lead from the front.
Oh, no doubt. Like what he did the last 2 years to anchor them to victory was incredibly impressive. And I'm really getting tired of that camera moving.
It's because you're putting your hand up, John.
All right. Well, I wish that our settings didn't enable that, but for some reason they do. Anyway, no, the DMR was really great. And credit to Al-Yadiz for bouncing back from the mile prelims, and also Wilma Nielsen. Robert, get this. Wilma Nielsen, a week ago, she was at the European Championships, ran the 800 meters for Sweden. She runs the prelim, she runs the semi, misses out on the final by 0.02 of a second, then flies over to Virginia, hanging out here for a few days, runs the mile, wins her mile prelim, looks fantastic, doubles back, runs 1,200, fastest 1,200 leg of the night, by the way, for Oregon. And they come in second. She's running the mile final tomorrow. After that, she's entered in the 800 at World Indoors for Sweden. And that's 3 races in 3 days. So, I'm like, how do you do this? How are you not like tired or just wrecked? She's like, I just transitioned pretty well. Is
she flying first class back and forth?
I don't know. Can Uncle Phil and the NIL, boosters, can they afford
that? By the way,
she's just like, I sleep pretty much anywhere. I recover all right. So, really props to her.
When I look at these splits, Oregon's 400s, you'd think they would be dominating BYU at 400. Instead, they're losing 0.3 of a second there. Oregon, well, they should have lost the Big Ten meet on the men's side because they have no 400-meter runners, but they didn't because there was a bogus disqualification. But if you look at the men's splits, interesting to me that Oregon is splitting 47-11 on the 4x4 for the men as well. So like that, you'd think compared to these schools like Virginia, BYU, that Oregon would have an advantage at 400. BYU men's split 45-8. So it's kind of shocking to me on that front that they're losing so much at 400. So Jerry, if you're listening, you need to recruit a couple 400-meter guys. All right, things that I learned. I was going to say, one other thing, Providence. I interviewed them after this race. They were the last team in. They finished third. Kimberly May on the anchor. She's like, yeah, I thought we could win it. We were so excited. We just couldn't put it together during the season, but we were hoping to win, but we're happy to be third.
I thought they had a shot. I mean, Kimberly May was second in the NCAA 1500 last year, and Shannon Flockhart was like sixth. So they had two of the best milers in the NCAA.
By the way, one of the guys in the chat, David, who was here today, says, should I drive back 90 minutes to Virginia Beach or watch hoops? You should definitely drive back. Like, the final day of NCAAs, to me, is by far the best day. It's very quick. Everything's a final. It's amazing. I just wish they didn't alternate men and women. I wish they had like men, women, men, women, men, women instead of this all men, all women. But it's I always said if I was taking a beginning track and field fan, I would just take them to NCAA finals. Like, it's one of the best days in track for me. So definitely come on back. All right. Things that I learned at the meet.
Wait, can we talk prelims real quick? Because just the one thing,
Yes.
This women's 800 prelims was absolute chaos. We had two women who broke two this year in the regular season, which is two of the fastest times ever. And one of them is Juliet Whitaker, seventh in the Olympics last year, has run 157 outdoors, reigning NCAA indoor champion and reigning NCAA outdoor champion. She doesn't even make the final. Just had nothing the last 150 in her heat. I'm just like, what? I mean, I thought she would win this no problem. She's clearly, the class of this field if they're all at their best. I talked to someone who kind of knows some things about Stanford, and they just told me, yeah, she's been banged up and kind of hurt right now. So they thought it was enough to run through, but clearly she's far less than 100%. So that's why she's out. But the other surprise was in Heat 1, Sanu Jallo, who runs for Arkansas, and you would think is one of their favorites. This was before Whitaker was eliminated, but she has a golden opportunity here. And she's run 159.7 this year, one of the fastest times ever. She just submarined her race by going out in 56.7 for the first lap. And I looked at that, I'm just like, really ugly. And it might not be good enough to get you in the final. And she just, again, she was in the lead with 200 to go. She fades to fifth and runs 202.57, doesn't make the final. And that's just, unfortunately, she just maybe got a little overexcited. But she likes to run from the front. She just ran too fast.
And that's got to be big for the team standings.
Yeah, getting a 0 from her, that's not something they would have expected.
800, it's very important to have a sense of pace. You've got to know what a 28 feels like, 29, 30, etc. Speaking of 800, when I was picking up the media credential, I was talking to a Power 5 head coach about, NCAA landscape and what's it like. You can pay the players and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I heard this Oregon 800 runner, 142. By the way, he did not make the final either. There's a Kenyan Olympian who ran 142 last year at the Kenyan trials, running for Oregon. He only run like 146 coming in, did not make the final. I said, I heard he got some NIL. He's like, yeah, $160,000. I was like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Then I walk into the stadium, bump him into another coach. This coach said, I know exactly. And they seem more confident to me. They said 100,000. And I'm not sure why I believe the second coach more than the first, but they were pretty emphatic about it. I said, well, I just heard from somebody else 160. He said, well, maybe the 160 includes the scholarship. So if you view a scholarship as worth 50 and 60, 100 on top of it would be 160. So it could be a little of both, I guess.
Oh, creative accounting, I see. Yeah.
So that was one thing that I picked up from being here. And I had an interesting conversation with a top agent, and we'll share this probably on the regular podcast next week as well, about Grand Slam track. And I said, I don't understand why a top sprint, we haven't seen any of the top sprint stars really, like Sha'Carri, Noah Lyles, Alfred, even in the hurdle race, Grant Holloway sign up.
Well, Sydney's doing it. She's a top sprint star.
Yeah, but I'm talking short sprints.
Okay.
Sydney's so much better. Well, Sydney, actually, we can get into that. And he said, well, I really think they don't. And I said, well, why wouldn't Grant Holloway, why does he care? He's so much running. He's like, no, the hurdle is a rhythm race. He doesn't want to be running all out 100 2 weeks before USA's. He's like, now he wouldn't have to worry about USA's this year because he's got to buy the Worlds, but it's going to mess up your rhythm, different muscle groups. So that's what he was saying. He said some of the 100, 200 guys just don't want to do the double. Even if they double regularly at the big meets, they don't do it that often in the regular season. And then he said, but for Sydney, he's like, well, the hurdles are so low. He said even for the 400 hurdles for the men, he thought it was a rhythm race. The hurdles are so high. And he's like, but Sydney, the hurdles are so low, you're just running fast. The hurdling technique is not that important for her. So it was an interesting, thing to talk about. All right. People want us to make our favorite, give out our favorites for tomorrow, John. Men's 3,000. One of the early commentators said, who is your favorite, John?
I mean, by all logic, it really should be Gary Martin. I don't know why I wouldn't pick him. I'm looking at all the history.
Why?
Like,
he just got wrecked in the 5,000. The 3,000 is not the same as a mile.
This is the thing. I'm like, I can't get away from Ethan Strand. Like, that was my pre-mate pick, and I think he's still the guy. And I would not be following my own advice at all, but I'm going to be somewhat contrary and go with a huge underdog, the man who set the NCAA record in this event earlier this year. Yeah, I'm going to go Ethan Strand.
I don't think it's crazy to pick Ethan. I think, why would we doubt Gary, though? Because the 3,000 turns normally into, who's about a miler, though?
Well, the mile is a question, but Gary did get destroyed in a 5K 2 weeks ago.
I think Strand's a good pick, but what about Hampton Samuel? I guess that 3,000 is not his.
I just think it needs to be really fast. I don't have him like Brian Massow. I think's got a better chance of that.
Actually, I think about that. Massow or Strand? Who's favored there? That's tough to me. If it's a fast race, I might go with Massow. I think Massow might be the pick. He's my number one pick. And then Strand over Martin, second pick. Surprising. But look, Strand killed him at 5, so I think 3 he might have a slight edge. It was pretty close today. I think the motivation is going to be there for Strand. So
100%.
Men's mile, I'm going to go with Nathan Green. And, by the way, my Princeton alum, as a Princeton alum, Harrison Witt looked great. But Nathan Green ran 3:56 today. I think he's the man to beat. Men's 800, this is a little bit more of a toss-up for me. Indoor 8s are more tactical. We haven't really talked about this race. Tinoda Matsada of Georgetown has run 145 this year. Aiden McCarthy has run 145 this year. McCarthy was only third in his heat today. Matsada has not been great tactically. He said he's more confident now this year. But Matthew Erickson of Oregon won his heat by a full second. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah, I think everyone is going to go into this race thinking they can win it, but Erickson was the most impressive guy I saw today. Just being able to open up on good guys and win by more than a second. Yeah, I guess I picked Matsada going in though. I don't know. Maybe I'm just easily swayed, but I do think than everyone else in the prelim. I don't tend to ignore that. So,
but are we a guy who's really done nothing at the NCAA level before? He's never even scored at the NCAA level. You expect him just to suddenly break out as a senior and win it?
I don't know, but he looked damn good today.
Women's side, give us your picks.
Oh, see, I went against the person who got beat. Sorry, I went against the winner in the 3K on the men's side. Do I do the same? Could Lexi Halliday-Lowry win that 3K or Riley Chamberlain? I think I'll go Riley Chamberlain, actually. I like the DMR anchor doubling back. So I'll say BYU. She gets revenge for Lexi Halliday-Lowry losing to Doris Lemngole. And I'll go with Riley Chamberlain for the win there.
Is Lemngole coming back?
Yeah.
All right, women's mile, women's 800. I don't have to make a pick because I had a flat tire. I missed those live, John. I almost had an accident. Last time when I came here to broadcast the American record attempts in the 5,000, I did have an accident returning back. Today I was trying to watch the meet on ESPN Plus while driving the car. It wasn't very smart. But
yeah, women's mile, I mean, again, I like to look at the heat winners. And that was Wilma Nielsen and that was Margot Appleton of Virginia. And Appleton won the ACC. Wilma Nielsen closed well. Appleton doesn't have the DMR in her legs, so I'm going to roll with her for the win. And on the 800, that thing, that's a real toss-up now. Harvard has 2 women in the final, Victoria Basong and Sophia Guerrero. Rasheem Willis is a former NCAA champion. Michaela Rose is a former NCAA champion. I think I'm going to roll Rasheem Willis, but that one, honestly, like half the field has a shot. So it's going to be fun to watch that. All right, Robert, we got some, well, at least I have some writing to do. So any parting thoughts before we sign off from Virginia Beach on day one?
If you're in Virginia Beach, go to shop.letsrun.com. Golden Pedal is like 25 hours, some huge discount. I shouldn't say this because I was just going to hand them to you. I don't have to ship them to you. But I think he couldn't set it up actually properly for everybody else. Like he couldn't set it just for Virginia Beach people. So if you want a shirt discount, go in there and I'll probably just still ship it to you. I won't ship it to you when I get home until I get home from spring break. So like 10 days. Huge discount shop.
Spring break!
We were going to have our New Zealand come on the show, but it appears that they're asleep, John. Jet lag.
Yeah, they had more significant travel than us East Coasters, so we're at an advantage here. Even though I have been up since 4 a.m. So
I'm tired
doing
too.
this for you guys.
I had to get up. Flat tire, nightmare.
I got to get my rest because we're going to watch Brighton beat Man City tomorrow and move into the Champions League places. So I need to make sure I can't miss that. Though it's 11 a.m. Eastern. So fortunately,
shout out to our friend Jordan for making this possible. It is more fun to have roommates, fans of the sport, keep us enjoying it, John. Even if they did fall asleep, a little disappointing. 10:53 p.m.
Okay.
Until next time.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.